Morning, Kindlech. Here to God willing record Osei and the Mimer Acharon Shel Pesach Tuf Shin or Tuf Shin Chaf as we're listing it, as I understand it, or it's also known as V'nachas Alav Ruach Hashem Tuf Shin Chaf as I understand it. The Rebbe Melech Mashiach must have said it in Tuf Shin Chaf and selected it for this publication, Tuf Shin I'm not certain about that, but I'm pretty certain, and it's also likely the Rebbe edited it if it's hand selected. Anyway, as always, learning to bind our souls to God, give pleasure, get a haste and redemption, and push the ball down the road. Let's get a little closer and please pass on a little of what you learned. What do you call an alligator in a vest? He's an investigator. We were talking about yesterday how I'm going to tip the scales a little bit. I'm assuming, that can get us in trouble where we're heading, is that every concealment is for the sake of a revelation. Every descent is for the sake of an ascent. How did we see that? Why did the neshama go into the body? It had it perfect before. Blissing out with God must be for the tremendous ascent that can be achieved by overcoming the concealment of the body, realizing how much you love God, and realizing the tremendous level of godliness that's in the body that the soul, in a certain sense, can't really bear. I mean, Atzmus is in the body. There's something from nothing is from the body. The soul's a little bit, so to speak, using a borrowed term. I'm not sure how well this would be mapped in Hasidus. Soul's a little more like a ray coming out of the sun. For the soul to be infinite is one thing. For the body to express its infinity, because everything which you see is truly infinite, is another thing. Or we could say that the time of that gullus, God forbid it should be over, should be for the sake of the geula. We should have it right away. So we see that any type of going down is for the sake of going up. And the Rebbe started to explain, we can understand this from Simsim Rishon, which is the first contraction, a concealment of the light. And the Rebbe explained Mitzad, the infinite light that stayed infinite. It didn't affect the light. It more, so to speak, affected its location. I'm going to use earthly terms because it's the only language I have, but we understand we're talking about things completely beyond space and time. Before the first Simpson, everything was on a God level, nothing to talk about, no even thought of being worlds, if I use the word thought, although there's obviously the potential for worlds, because here we are. So that light was, so to speak, I like that the mashal, the analogy of an idea moved to the back of the mind. It's still there. It's still just as strong. It's just not in the front burner. The light that eventually illuminated the world, it got separated from this infinite mix to become its own light, although still infinite in its own sense, in the sense that it's attached to the infinite, although it would eventually be sent out to make worlds. So one, it was separated from its where it was originally included, as if you could extract the milk from the coffee, so to speak. I like that example. Two, it was given the ability to compartmentalize, if I could say that. It has the ability to have the 10 spheres inside of it. Three, and the light is a composite light. It's one light, but within the light, it does have these 10 spheres. Maybe we could say like a white light when you're refracted through a prism, if that's the right way to say those things. But hopefully you know what I mean. And three, that it could be enclosed, meaning tailor-made fit into vessels, light fitting into physical vessels, or first of all spiritual vessels and physical vessels, soul in the body, the intellect in the words, whatever it is, to the point where the light itself became a little bit physical, a little bit like the vessels. And that's where we were holding yesterday. So starting Osei, V'hini al derek zehu gamba helam diridas neshama lamanta shekol ha'helamos shorsham hu mehelam ditzimtzum rishon. So too, when the neshama comes into the body, it's similar concealment, because all the concealments stemmed from this first original concealment of Simsim Rishon. Before that, there was no concealment. That brought the concept and the aspect and the idea of concealment into the universe, however you want to say. It's hard to talk about these zones that are just so far beyond space and time. We have to figure out a language that works for us, that are completely beyond. And it was the source of the concept of concealment, and a concealment in and of itself. So all concealments, so to speak, stem from there. Sheish bo shnei inyanim. It has two concepts. Dugma shnei inyanim and al simsim rishon. The neshama coming down into this world has two concepts similar to the concepts of the original contraction. Aleph, Shabios and Neshama Lamayla. The way neshama is upstairs, part of your neshama is still upstairs, basking in godly rays, isn't affected by anything down here, still sending you all the gooey gushy love stuff. Everything's revealed up there, all her qualities, all her aspects, her powers. When she comes down here, I'm sorry. The neshama, before she came down, everything was totally revealed, and now that she's come down, some of her powers are concealed until we bring them to the surface and bring them out. She starts in your nose in the morning, in your nostrils, and you pray, you bring her through your body. do Torah and mitzvahs help a Jew. It becomes more revealed through your person and your world. You refine your body by eating the right foods in the right amounts at the right times and not taking too much pleasure in the food enough. You have to enjoy the food, but not for the sake of the of it. The idea is that you give you strength to serve God. You got to work that piece out, although I'm not saying it's easy. The main sacrifice of our times is the sacrifice at the food table, the Rebbe Rashav says in Samach Vav. But if we can eat godly and sleep godly, eat right, sleep right, stay in the light, as I like to say, you're going to start to feel godly, and it's going to be easier, and then your speech, your feelings will become a little more godly. But it takes constant effort, and you got to push more and do a little more and a little more and a little more, and you'll slowly feel a little bit more and more godly, hopefully to be reflected in your speech and your thought, and then eventually, God willing, even in your heart, and you could even learn to hate evil. Imagine that, not only just not running for the taivas, but learning to actually hate them. Could be you. It can happen. Anyone could do this. You have a brain that can do this, and you have a godly soul helping. So Shama was perfect, blissing out in God. Then she came down here to some degree. She's concealed in the serpent skin of the body. Her powers are concealed. Oh, I have to be careful. Down here they're concealed, but I scratched the last part. Might have to edit that out. The concealment isn't that the body conceals. It's not the body concealing. I'm sorry for all those things I said. It's not that. And also maybe suggests we should prepare. Rather these things. Alright, I'm gonna have to read ahead. So there is still part of your neshama that's upstairs. And she's irradiating good gooey gashi goodliness to you all the time, the way you are in the body. And she's not enclosed in the body. So you, as a being who may or may not process themselves as being in a body, may or may not be so in tune with these messages that you're getting from the neshama as she is upstairs. When the neshama was completely upstairs, all parts of it, no body, then yeah, of course, these frequencies were coming through loud and clear. Everything was revealed and open communication channels were flying. But now that the neshama is to some degree in the body, the parts that are out of the body, we're saying are to some degree concealed because the communication isn't as clear as it used to be when everything was united out of the body. Similar to the infinite light of God that's always was infinite, moved to the back burner. This completely infinite side of you that transcends everything around you. You have it, but to experience it, you have to bring it to the front burner. It takes effort. You have to I am an infinite soul. I do have the infinite light of God in me. I am spiritual. I have a part of me that's beyond space and time. I have a part of me that completely transcends space and time. I have a part of the Creator Himself inside me. These type of things, for most people, it takes constant reminder. It's much easier to think of yourself as this physical being that has a soul inside it. Okay, so I'm this 100 and whatever pounds of flesh and bones and eyes and nose and whatever it is. And okay, very nice to have a soul, and it might even be a godly soul. It does happen to be a godly soul. And I have enough sparkling, but it's processing in me. I'm processing a godly me. To remember that I am, and even the true me, I might say, is completely beyond all that, completely beyond my normal experience. Okay, it makes sense to me that I'm really not so much enclosed in the body, and I'm not so much this body. I'm really that infinite godly soul that's beyond, but to get in touch with that, it takes to keep repeating it, keep saying it. It's especially if you hear it from another person, it's much easier. See it in print from the Rebbe Melch Mashiach. But these parts of you, they're true, they're real, and we need to get in touch with them by bringing them to the front burner. And this that they're not always on the front burner is similar to the first contraction. And how about the parts of the soul that are in the body? Ham Gasham, and they got a little bit grub from being in the body, a little physical. It's similar to how the light of the kav, the ray that God sent out after the first contraction to illuminate the worlds, became a little bit more physical when it was invested in Kalim. As God's light's invested in this world, it, so to speak, becomes a little more physical from being invested in the physical vessels of the world. And so too by Gullus, it should be over right away. It has these concepts. First of all, the revelations of the Beis Hamikdash aren't shining so brightly. Nevertheless, I can think about them and experience them to some degree. I can read about them, these tremendous infinite miracles, and know that they are, and in a certain sense they're happening all the time because they're beyond space and time, they're beyond the limits of space and time. And I can experience these miracles now. I can't look at it and see it as simple as I see my hand on the screen, but I can see it in the sense that I could read about it, I could look at a picture of it, I could think about it, I could bring it to the front burner, even though my hand is right here. If I'm not looking at it, it's not really part of my world. I'm not thinking about my hand. Right now I'm talking about this book that I'm reading, this tremendous Sefer Torah. This tremendous book of the Rabbi Melech Moshiach's Torah. So where your mind is where you are for the most part. So if my head is thinking about the miracles of the Beis HaMikdash, I'm kind of there. But I have to bring it to the foreground. What generally is in the foreground is what a person's doing, thinking, or talking about that minute. So how important it is to pick, think, and talk about good, gooey, godly stuff all the time. And if a person gets a little off track, how big of an improvement would it be if they just pick themselves up and just all of a sudden start doing godly stuff right then, even if it's a little uncomfortable. It'll become where they are then, even if a little bit of their person or mind is still trapped in the minute or minute and a half ago. Eventually it will come around if they do more godly stuff. It's difficult. We can get lost and start caught. That's also interesting. A person can be doing something and be completely someplace else. Their head and their mouth and their eyes are all involved in a project, and they're thinking about a trip to Hawaii. So they're more or less in Hawaii, and yet the project's happening. But if what's happening isn't so perfect, and he can jump himself, boom, without really understanding, into something gooey and godly, that's great. And I'm of the impression that if he keeps at it, after enough time, even if his head's still dwelling in the not as good thing, it will come around. The godly will become more revealed to him, and he'll start to feel and experience more, and he'll become present in the godly thing he's doing. But the main thing is to do godly stuff, and the head will come around to think godly stuff and stay on track. So the revelations of the Beis HaMikdash aren't so bright. We have to bring them to mind. We don't see godliness as clearly as we did when the Beis HaMikdash was standing. We should have it right away. And also what we understand of godliness isn't as true as it was then. And it's not just because godliness is, they're seeing something and there's understanding something. Alright, it's finally starting, I don't say I have it, it's starting to click in. You can see something and not understand it. You can see the miracles in the Beis HaMikdash. This doesn't mean you understand them. You just saw something happen. Okay, I saw a miracle. How did it work? Tell me about it. As opposed to whatever your field of expertise is. Let's say you're a scientist. I don't know what you study. Botany. You're going to tell me all about plants. It's one thing for a person to look at a plant and say, I see a green thing and it grows a little bit each day. Another thing to tell me all the inner workings of the plant. So one thing is seeing and one thing is understanding. Both are some type of perception. So the fact that we don't understand godliness as well as the people did back then, it's not the same as saying that the revelations aren't as bright. Revelations are one thing, understanding is another thing. It's also from the concealment of Gullus. It even affects a person's understanding, if you can imagine that. Hides on our understanding. It's interesting. That's trickier to understand. Maybe it's worth talking about a little, but a simple person can understand that if you're in the temple, we should have it right away, and you're seeing an open miracle, that's one thing, and if you're not in the temple seeing an open miracle, that's a second thing. But if you read about those miracles, you could bring it to your mind, and whatever the relationship is vis-a-vis that experience would be an interesting discussion. It's another thing to say, learn an open Gemara that seems to talk about things that we do understand. A person could think they understand a halacha, let's say a simple halacha, or a simple verse in Chumash. Not that anything's so simple, even the Chumash, it's, infinite interpretation. Shouldn't say infinite, but it has infinite depth because it's God's Torah. I think of something simple we'd agree to. Alright, I don't know. Let's say you can't eat milk and meat. It seems like that's something we think we understand. Okay, you can't eat the milk and meat. Okay, I get that. I know what eating is. I know what milk and meat are. And you can't eat them. That's it. Even what we understand of this, it's not like the way they understood it in the temple. So that's interesting. I guess it could still be the same thing. We understand the body of it. There's milk, there's meat, no eating. It's just we have the shell, the physical framework. We don't really get it. I'm going to suggest possibly in the temple era they knew more what meat represented, the spirituality of the meat, and what the milk represented, the spirituality of the milk, and what it meant if, God forbid, they would come together on some type of either intellectual level, maybe we should say intellectual. I don't think intuitive changes the discussion here. Intellectual level, intuitive level, and what eating meant on a more spiritual level. So the idea being that the light was shining more brightly, so everything was more spiritual. Even understanding was more spiritual. You can't tell me you don't understand that you can't eat milk and meat now. But it would have been a much more spiritual understanding. Everything about the existence was more spiritual then. Here it takes more reminding. You need a guy like me to come in here and pump you up and remind you you're spiritual, you're all godly, you're everything good, and go out there and do it, and you can do it. This is true. In the temple, it didn't take so much reminding. No, maybe I'd have been, God forbid, out of a job then. Not that I have so much of a job now. We are going to hit you up for support at some point. I hope you're ready for that. Alright, so the idea being that the light was turned on at Matan Torah, it shined the brightest then, and so to speak, it's God forbid getting dimmer over time, but we're getting more vessels, less light but more vessels, and as we get the vessels, the nice thing about the vessels is they never change. What's nice about the light is it shines very bright. So possibly since the light was shining more brightly, their understanding was greater. Maybe that's a nice way to say it. I'll pick the right item in the room. This isn't the right item, but I'm going to, alright, I have a drink bottle here. I don't really want to show it, but I understand there's a drink bottle here. I see a bottle, it's plastic, I see a beverage inside. But if more light were shining on that bottle, not only do I see the bottle better, I understand it better because I'm going to be able to see all the pictures much clearer. The bottle, the label, the liquid, and whatever I'm able to see will generate more understanding. So the more godliness they could see, we're not talking about open miracles, we're just talking about standard default perception. So standard default perception was much more godly back then. The light was brighter, so what they could see and meat, the same meat we see, it wasn't the same meat that they see, if you could believe that. I mean, okay, they weren't going to tell you that the 10-ounce steak wasn't 10 ounces. Of course it's 10 ounces, and they weren't going to tell you it wasn't this size when it was this size. But what they were able to see was much more godly. So we have to remember everything around us is godly. It's nature's godly. Everything's godly. We have to be encompassed in these things. All right. Shiach now.